Hi guys. So it's been a while since I've been in touch, and um, it has really been a while. It has been since November, so that is about 6 months. Um, I have been super busy doing a big project, and that has taken a lot of my free time. And in place of writing a lot of blogs or doing any videos, I have been actually on the learning end for the last 6 months, attending lectures on Zoom or taking courses. And that's one of the reasons I'm not focusing a video on myself talking, because I have taken a lot of courses or seen a lot of lectures recorded, teachings recorded, and it is usually a person talking. And I find that what I do is put the audio on in my car while I'm driving, and I don't really look at the person. And at the times when I have, it is a little bit distracting, um, a little bit in some cases. So I just think it might be better to, speak from the heart and do it in a way that where the audio is the focus, and if there's any, visual content desired, we'll then put up something just more informational that sticks, or more meditative than just me and my face talking. So it's been a little while, and I am in the middle of taking a course offered by Carolyn Mace, and I've mentioned her before. So I wanted to get back on a little bit to share some things that I've been inspired to say from listening to these teachings, and I still have many more to go, but the few that I've listened to, it's fabulous. It's great stuff. I really connect with her, and I think it is really important to find somebody to connect with if you are a seeker, a light worker, somebody that wants to contribute love and light to our world and to the global consciousness. If you're in that realm, this is a message that speaks to you, because I know through my journey, um, when you get on the spiritual path, you feel kind of isolated because a lot of the people in your life are not going to be on that path. And it's fine, you'll still have those people and things will be great, but when you go to that profound area, there's not normally a lot of people around to hash that out with. You will probably have people in your life that you can talk to like that, but you may not have access to them all the time. And the people that you do have access to all the time, you might not have that kind of relationship with. So it can get lonely, and you can vacillate between being in your inner self and your spiritual realm, and then being very human and having these very human moments that you're almost, we might be a little bit embarrassed of some of the things that we do, or that we got caught up in some drama again, or we did something we knew better because we had learned that lesson in the past, or at least we thought, and we repeated some mistake and we're kicking ourselves. And I would always say to myself, I feel like I'm half spiritual and half human. And so I imagine that there probably are some other people that feel that way, and I think that actually makes sense because of the moment that we're in with this transition, this shift. Um, it is moving to a new realm. It's moving to a new reality, a new way of thinking, um, and in that, we get caught up in the spiritual because we're trying to go there, but we constantly revert back to the human. And it's hard to stay in the spiritual realm, and we know that's where we should be, but we get to a point where we're thinking, like, why am I even doing this? Is it even making a difference? Like, nothing's changing. The world is horrible. Look, it's gotten worse. And for right now, what we're going through, it has gotten worse, and we're in a funky place, so it's an uncomfortable place. And I'm finding right now with this, when I'm tuning into these teachings, and especially, this person that that she resonates with me, this, particular teacher, Carolyn Miss, um, I am just elevated and inspired, and I realize that it is important to stay the course and be on the path. And so I thought I'd come back on and just, let everybody know we're still out there as far as the people that want to have a positive impact and see the world change into a more loving and sharing place where resources for everybody aren't a problem. Nobody is going to lock up food, and nobody's going to control the major resources. We just work together as we should be, and have in some cases continue to do that, because that's what we do. Not because we have to work for the man, or feed the oligarchy, or there's just or feed the greed. There's just so many things that we're doing that don't make sense and are not good for any of us, and are definitely not good for all of us. And now we're in this time of facing the consequences of just, so many bad choices. So it is important for people who are the seekers and the light workers and the change agents, so many different names. But if you tune into stuff like this, you're definitely, you're one of them. You may as well say, like, you're part of the, what I like to call the army of peace, or you're part of, the light worker community. So you may find yourself getting frustrated with people around you. And when I'm, sometimes when I'm listening to these teachings, there'll be a question and answer segment after, and some of the people will ask the question, why are we having so much social discord, political divide right now? Like, what does that have to do with this transition? And I think what a lot of them are getting at is, isn't the pandemic enough? And, like, why is this other thing happening where, and, in some cases we are coming together, but there is, like, this whole, you know, uproar of protests over so many things and so many different sides, and conflicts and clashes and just complete craziness and mayhem. And I think, people are questioning, like, what is that, and what are we supposed to get out of it, and, what part does it play, and why is it happening? And especially when there's people in our lives we're close to, and we just kind of see them, sucked into the old way, and really not wanting to, change to a different way of thinking that would be more positive and more community minded, beneficial to everybody, and, not self centered as we have, lived for so long. So we get frustrated with these people, and we get kind of angry, and we want to, have somebody tell us, some wise person tell us, like, why, and how do we handle this, and what can we do? And it doesn't seem like there's anything we can do. And, there's a big focus on it. And one of the things that, I'm realizing through these teachings, and that question doesn't always get answered directly, is that when we get frustrated and we're thinking, oh my gosh, why are you like that? What we have to say is, when we're thinking, like, how could they be like that? It's because they are human. They are human. And to be human is to be ignorant and flawed. And that's the part where we're just in denial, and nobody wants to go there because it sounds negative and pessimistic, and it's, we're all human. But when we think about that spiritual side and then that human side, generally the human side is what we're frustrated with, because we're going back to the human conditioning, the brainwashing that has been there throughout just, all of the history of mankind. And why this is such a very just profound moment in the history of mankind is because all of that way of thinking that doesn't even really make sense it and has been there for so long, is breaking now. It's breaking down, and a new way is emerging, and has to, if we're going to survive as a species. And so that's why this is so profound, because the way that we think and have been taught to think and have passed on to one another through, just eons, is incorrect. And it is causing these problems. So it is very difficult when you see a better way, and how easy it would be if everybody just shared, if everybody just cooperated, if everybody loved one another, and we just all provided for each other. And we already know how to get food across the world, so there's enough food on the planet for everybody. And it's really just kind of a very simple thing. Why wouldn't we take care of everybody? Why wouldn't we take care of mankind? And why do we want to kill each other? Like, these things, the way that we have been, there's always been war and killing one another. It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense anymore, and it's really becoming a huge drag, because it's threatening our very existence. The way that we are is threatening our very existence, and we are being forced to change. So when you're frustrated with somebody and you're like, oh my gosh, how could they be like that? It is because they are human. They have been exposed to this in their DNA, in their ancestry, in their history. All of us have, right? Now, some of us light workers seem to be like a little bit more in tune with, oh my goodness, something is changing, and we're on board with getting getting healthy within ourselves, being introspective, figuring ourselves out to try to figure out other people and how we can help, and analyzing the world and all of these different things. So all of us need to keep going on that path, and not let just just the mainstream human beings that we're going to come into contact with, people in our family, who just are not, they're not, I keep saying spiritual, because I don't think that you necessarily even have to be spiritual to think about just being kind to other people, just sharing, you know, being helpful, cooperating, all of these old-fashioned views, love your neighbor as yourself, these have been here for forever, but we don't live them out. And so, there's going to be people who are just not going to want to change. They are not going to get on board with any kind of change, even in the way that they think, even if they can see how it's not super positive, but they're just afraid of change. They don't know that the way that you're proposing is going to be a better way. And their feet are just stuck in the sand, and they're dug in, and they're not going to move, and they're going to be stubborn. And we have to move on. We have to say they're human. They're in the stage of their existence where the human conditioning, they're stuck. They choose to be stuck. They choose not to move on. They're not interested in co-creating a reality that works better for everybody. And we move on, because as reality does shift, everybody's coming with it, whether they want to or not. So whichever way it goes, we all have to go that way. Um, even though right now it does seem like there are people are living in different realities for a lot of the time, um, because it is getting kind of crazy, because there is, just so much overwhelming crisis, on the planet right now. Um, change is happening whether we want it to or not. So we'll see how it goes. But as far as being on the light worker side of things, it's all about love and light. And so we have to keep putting that out there. And we have to understand when we're frustrated, yes, the person we're frustrated with, they are human. What what we all have to also understand is that we can influence them, but not by trying to influence them. We can influence them by staying on the path and staying the course and living light and love in whatever way we can in everything we do. And we can stay the course also by being proactive when we have the opportunity, because we have these people who are like officials or politicians who are so corrupt, and we need to basically speak out against that. We need to start speaking out. So writing to your representatives, writing to your governor, writing to your mayor, writing to your attorney general, whatever it's going to take in just that very tactile, physical world, you can influence people. Um, we definitely do that on social media with what we post. Um, Words are heavy, so it's important to watch what you say. So there are ways to influence people. There are ways to be active and proactive, to get your voice heard. And because you're on the light worker side of things, you should be doing that, because your voice is very, very important, because we have to get the shade and the darkness out of the community leadership. That has to go away. The new value system has no room for that in the leadership. And so that's why the negative forces are, fighting back, just fighting back with the strength of what seems like their massive army of destruction. Um, However, I don't think they have as much strength and power as the army of peace and the army of light, and all of the love that comes from this side of the game of collective consciousness. So when you are on your spiritual path, or your path of trying to influence and create a better world and a better reality and co-create with other people, you're going to run into these forces that really are going to try to come up against you. And it might be somebody like in your life that you're not even expecting, that just says something as insignificant as "it'll never change." People say that all the time. It'll never change. Why are you even trying? And that is them being afraid of change, and really wanting you to be in their corner, where it's like, hey, focus on me and my drama or whatever it is. But this whole idea of like changing the world, not interested, just and they're going to try to shut you down. And it's not even that they're doing it because they're malicious, but just expect it, because not a lot of people are going to be on that same vibe. Like I said, some of them will come along, everybody will come along. Some of them will even come along on the side of light and love. But for the most part, a lot of people are not going to change. So there's going to be people that are just stuck in the mud, and you can't spend a lot of time and effort on those people. But it is important to know what is driving all of this is that fear of change and fear in general. Fear is the culprit of the problem of mankind. We are just so afraid that our lives are going to be taken from us, our resources are going to be taken from us. We are going to be left out in the cold with no shelter, no food, and that controls us. And it makes sense because we are, our basic instinct is the instinct to survive. So that does completely make sense that, like, we are in fear of anything that could cause us to not thrive and to not survive. So the new way, the new consciousness, the new and better reality, it lacks that fear. Part of that, as people can kind of come to a better understanding of how reality works and how life works, and how co-creation works and how choices and outcomes work. As people get a better grip on that, we will need to help them adjust and alleviate, any kind of fears that are old fears. Because as we do adjust to this, we're going to see a much happier, more calm human race, because we are not going to have the same stresses. The stresses, if you do think about them, are, we'll think about what are your greatest fears. A lot of people, their greatest fear is, the fear of death. A new way of thinking will help shift that so that we all collectively understand that there really is no death. Leaving the physical body is what we call death, but there is really no death, because and as we co-create, we get used to all these new ideas. That will become more clear that we do not have to fear death. It's just simply another one of these transitions where we're letting go of some of this human stuff that we're stuck on, and that in the case of death includes the body. But it'll be a lot easier once people make the adjustment through the transition, and getting through it is what is going to be the hard part. And it is the hard part because we're starting right now and there's so much resistance. um, People, I kind of see this thing with um, people, politicians, I guess I'll say it, politicians, um, just saying the craziest things, such as like suggesting, I think I might have heard something about coal, suggesting that putting that soot, into people's lungs who have to work in the mines, and into the air and atmosphere, um, that we needed to stick with what we were doing. Like, we need to stick with, um, gasoline. We need to stick with the way we do electricity, even though the grid is like so, um, the grid collapses and things are so vulnerable. And, why wouldn't we upgrade all of that stuff? It doesn't even make sense not to. Like, why wouldn't we try new ways of, like the electric cars, for example, like all of these things where we can try this new technology, in terms of how we generate energy to be able to travel and to do the things that we enjoy, the things we do now, off of different sources of fuel or different sources of energy. And it's crazy to me to think that, like, people actually shut that down, and then that there's people in our society that actually vote these kind of politicians into office. Actually, the whole concept of politicians and voting, the, some of the, I can't even, it just, the whole thing doesn't make any sense to me. Left, right, politics, administrations, and none of that makes any sense to me. So I kind of just have to not, go there. But I just see this insanity of fear of change that doesn't even make any sense. I mean, we've come so far with our technology. Look at what we can do now. We can talk to somebody across the world. We can see them on video and see what they're seeing in real time. We didn't used to be able to do that, and that's a huge advancement. And why would anybody want to block the advancement of technology and conserving resources and building off of other resources? I just, so we can see the level of resistance and just ignorance that is ever present in mankind, just for the fact that we absolutely do have to change a lot of the things we've been forced to change. We already have, because with the pandemic and some of the huge storms and natural disasters that have happened, we have already been forced, and we will continue to be. So we are going to have to change. So people that are resisting that in the most basic ways, I just do not. Um, I can't tune into how anybody could support that. I know the people that are these politicians, and what, sometimes they do become representatives, or officials or whatever. I know why they're doing it, because it's all about money and it's about greed. But I do not understand how, I will just speak to the American voters, why they vote for things that are just not good for them. Why have we just settled into an oligarchy over the course of, our lifetimes? We have allowed this to happen. All of these things that have happened that have now just terrible consequences, and it goes from like the things that people protest about, the racial injustice and inequalities, and the policing system, and the school systems, and the corporations, and the oil companies, and the drug companies, and the insurance companies, and single payer versus private payer. All of these things are a result of our choices, our complete apathy along the way. Um, and now we're at the time when we're paying our karmic debt, and we are going to continue to pay. It's, I won't say, I kept saying through, the first 6 months of doing these videos, it's going to get worse. Now I'm at a point where what I think is it's gotten really, really, really bad, and it's going to stay relatively bad for a while. It might get better in small increments, and then get, something happens. It's the next hurricane. It's the, major earthquake, whatever it is. Um, Things will continue to be heavy for a while. And this transition in consciousness, and transition in the way that we think, this shift that needs to go, happen on a global scale, is going to take time. And I know a lot of us, I'm not patient. I wanted this to happen like, what was it, 2012, or, whatever, however many end of the worlds there have been, or supposed to have been by now. I wanted it to just be, bada bing, bada boom, it's done. The world is awake. We have, you know, we we have awakened. And and that's funny, because we actually have people, politicians and representatives, saying like, don't get woke. Getting woke is like a bad idea. I don't even understand how getting woke is a political thing, because I think like 95% of human beings are not woke, so I don't see how that is a political thing at all. But for people to actually campaign against evolving, I this, the reality we live in, you cannot really get caught up in trying to fathom why this is happening and how people could be like that, because again, they are human. They are human. We have been asleep and so ignorant for so long. And, we've been killing each other since the dawn of civilizations or even clans or tribes. This is our history. And now that we're starting to break out of that, there are some of us that are seeing exactly how insane that is. Some of us have been seeing that for decades because this shift that's happening, we've actually been preparing for it for decades. It actually started decades ago, so we've known about it, but this major time of like just crisis and breakdown and chaos that creates and forces change. This is what we were all living for. We didn't know how it was going to present itself, but we knew it was going to happen, and it's here. So we all have to stay the course, stay on the light path, find somebody to listen to. Um, find a teacher, somebody that does this like, for a living, that has material and content, audio content, books, something that inspires you, something that resonates with you. What resonates with me may not be what resonates with you. I know some of the teachers or speakers that I did see during this learning phase that I'm still in. um, I didn't resonate with what they were saying. It just was like I kind of got it, and I was like, yeah, that's an angle you could take on it, but I don't see it like that. I kind of don't agree with, you know, this concept or the way it was presented, and so those few people, you just it's great what they're doing because there is somebody that does connect with them who will understand and be able to, start their own personal evolution and personal healing and personal empowerment process, um, because that person's vibe and what they're preaching does resonate. And so just find somebody that out there that's on that you can, tap into on the internet, or get some books downloaded or order some books if you like them in hard copy, and use that person to keep on this journey, to keep going. Every time you feel like you've gotten off the path a little bit, use that content and get back on the path with something that really does, lift your spirits. That's going to be important because this is going to be a long process. We want it to happen right away. It's not going to happen right away, but we cannot waver. We have to stick in there and be strong, despite all of these different challenges that, you know, mankind is facing, and what affects one affects us all. And, that's another important teaching, that I've been listening to is just any thought that you have, any action that you take, it affects all of us, all of us. So when we do really shitty things and we just kind of pass it off like, I'll make up for it by doing something nice, later on down the line or whatever, it's not okay. I mean, even the little stuff right now, we've got to tighten up because we need to inspire people who are pretty much uninspirable, but just by our energy that is in our right effort and our right actions, we actually will bring them along. They actually will come along. And the ones that just like totally fall into darkness, well, there are people, that can live in the same household, and one of them is like living in the light and the other one is in a totally different dark and, just depressed, low level reality. So it's all from coming from within. So we don't know what others are experiencing, but we're trying to pull everybody into the light side and get people out of this dense side. Some people are not going to come along. A lot of people are not going to come along, but we're just going to bring them along, um, and they're not going to implode, or, it's whatever their path is as far as how they live and what happens to them. But we just have to keep moving. So that's about it for today. And I'll try to be in touch a little bit more. I hopefully can find the time to do that. And just remember, it's all about love.